Good Thursday morning. Hey, happy Halloween. This is Jeremy coming at you once again with Redtired podcast, and I'm back with the Marlboro man himself, Jacob Valdez. Good morning, Jacob.
Good morning. This is like the perfect day and weather for where I live at to watch like Young Frankenstein with Gene Wilder.
And just stay inside and avoid the cold altogether. I'd like to, I watched that movie on the plane, and what was really funny is I remember having my headphones in, and I even offered to share one of the headphones with you, and you're like, nah, I'm good. I've seen this movie so many times that I already know what's going on. I know what they're saying.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yep.
That was a great movie, by the way. But it's Halloween. That means that, well, you got to dress up. So, of course,
Master Mash.
you got to get dressed up. You got to watch the classics like, I don't know, Hocus Pocus, Young Frankenstein. And I'd just like to point out to everybody who's listening, you can't see this because they're not on YouTube watching the video. Jacob is dressed up as a Nintendo 64.
Yep.
It's
insert cartridge here.
Yeah. It's actually just a Nintendo 64 shirt. And we're really lazy when it comes to the dressing up thing. And my costume is Infidel, as you can see. Infidel, it's tight. It's right there on my head. It's on a hat. It's not all that fascinating. So today, we got a couple of things we got to talk about. These things came out last night, and I sent you text messages on them, and I said, we're going to talk about these things tomorrow. And we got a lot to talk about and not a lot of time to do it in. So I'm just going to get right into it. 1, Twitter bans political ads. 2, Trump wins the Iowa presidential straw poll. And 3, Barack Obama calls out cancel culture. Whoa. All right. So first and foremost, yeah, I know Barack Obama coming back and saying, hey, wait a minute.
This is not right. What have I begun? What have I started here?
As soon as we started beating on him and picking on him, he actually comes out and says, we need to calm this stuff down. What the hell
maybe
is
it's guilt. He's like, man, I started this. I should say something.
I'm putting my money on this. He tuned into Redtired podcast and realized, maybe I should make some changes.
What is that redneck and Mexican talking about anyway?
I didn't know you identified as a redneck. All right.
That's a good one.
Thanks. So Twitter banned some political ads. Not some, correction, all. All right. This was interesting to me because that's a revenue stream. So I'm going to read the story, and of course, as usual, we're going to source all these down in the description. You're welcome, Mike. Twitter, reacting to growing concerns about misinformation spread on social media, is banning all political advertising from its service. Its move strikes a sharp contrast with Facebook, which continues to defend running paid political ads, even false ones, as a free speech priority. While internet advertising is incredibly powerful and very effective to commercial advertisers, that power brings significant risk to politics, where it can be used to influence votes and affect the lives of millions, Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey said Wednesday in a series of tweets announcing his new policy. Facebook has taken fire since its reiteration in September that it will not fact-check ads by politicians or their campaigns, which could allow them to lie freely. CEO Mark Zuckerberg told Congress in October that politicians have the right to free speech on Facebook, which I have to applaud. That's awesome. Zuckerberg wasted no time in responding to Twitter's move during Facebook's conference call for earnings, which began less than an hour after Dorsey's tweet. The Facebook chief offered an impassioned monologue about what he called his company's deep belief that political speech is important. Zuckerberg stood by the company's decision to run unchecked political ads and denied that the choice is financially motivated, saying such ads make up less than 0.5% of Facebook revenue. Facebook's recent $5 billion fine from the Federal Trade Commission for privacy violations was more than 10 times what it makes in political ads, he said. This is complex stuff. Anyone who says that the answer is simple hasn't thought about the nuances and downstream challenges, he said. I don't think that anyone can say that we're not doing what we believe or what we haven't thought hard about in these issues. Google did not have an immediate comment on Twitter's policy change. Why this is relevant, I'll never know. Trump's campaign manager called Twitter's change a very dumb decision in a statement on Wednesday. This is yet another attempt to silence conservatives, since Twitter knows President Trump has the most sophisticated online program ever. Campaign manager Brad Parcell said. Probably Parcell, I don't know, who cares. The presidential campaign for former Vice President Joe Biden said it was unfortunate and that companies would think the only option was to completely ban political ads. The presidential campaign for former Vice President Joe Biden said that it was unfortunate that companies would think that the only option was to completely ban political ads. Quote, when faced with a choice between ad dollars and the integrity of our democracy, it is encouraging that for once revenue did not win out, Bill Russo, the deputy communications director for Biden's campaign, said in a statement. I think Bill Russo is correct, actually. Dollars shouldn't win out in these elections. And granted, it takes money to win elections, but in this case, Twitter's recognizing their own issue. They're recognizing their own issues, which we just bashed on them for yesterday. They're being a cesspool, so to speak, and it's they're finally making an attempt to take the high road on something.
I think people listen to our episode. I think that's exactly what just happened.
Yep, that's what happened. We called it out. They're listening. There you go. I don't agree with the claim that refusing the campaign ads is a dumb idea, like the Trump campaign said. I don't agree with that at all. I think it's I think it's actually quite the opposite. It seems like maybe Jack Dorsey might actually be trying to clean up Twitter and potentially make it a place for voices of all.
Make it a prime product before he sells.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there you go. He's trying to prime the pump, or maybe he's trying to jack his stock price back up. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
No, I'm me. I'm going for Trump. I'm rooting for him. But you are correct. Twitter doesn't need a janitor, basically, and that's basically it, man. They just need to mop up this, some negative stuff. And like I said, man, Twitter is nothing but a trolling platform. And if it can fix it, that'd be great.
Yeah, it would be. All right. So there you have it.
Political or not.
No political campaign ads on Twitter. We applaud you. All right. Next story. Trump wins the Iowa presidential straw poll.
Now, enlighten me on that. What does that mean?
Well, I'm going to explain it. So hold on tight. All right, so this took place in Iowa, obviously. KCRG reporting, students across the state got the chance to cast their votes for the Iowa Youth Straw Poll on Tuesday. Nearly 300 schools registered with the Iowa Secretary of State's office to participate, which called the poll's, quote, Elections 101 event. Before casting their ballots, students learned about the history of voting in the United States. Johnson County Auditor Travis Weipert said that once they're eligible to vote, the youth can have a big impact on elections, which is like, duh. You look at how a few of your youth votes, and all of a sudden you start getting 20 to 30,000 of those, say, under 25 crowds out to vote, Weipert said. That absolutely could have a huge impact even on a presidential election. When you start looking at some of the vote totals in swing states, students could easily swing where those electoral votes go, just by showing up and voting. Students could voice their opinions on the presidential, U.S. Senate, the House of Representative races. President Donald Trump won the presidential poll with over 7,000 votes. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders gained the most support compared to the Democratic rivals with around 2,300 votes. Weipert said that the mock election can help prepare students mentally for when they can legally vote. Quote, straw polls or a mock election are a great way to eliminate a lot of that fear, Weipert said. The other thing, by doing these sorts of events with a straw poll, is to get people to go out and search the internet for candidates that they like and to inform yourself. Over 85% of students who participate said that they will register to vote when they're eligible. Now, I grew up in Iowa, so this kind of hits a little bit close to home, and I remember doing these straw polls, and every 4 years, basically, when we were students, we were allowed to take part in mock elections. And what the state does is they collect all of that information, and then they publish it. And why it's important? Okay, so here's why it's important. Iowa holds what's called a caucus. All right? These caucuses, they're held every election year, so every 4 years. And it's a convoluted process. It's a little confusing, but it works for them. So I'm not going to bore you with the details on how it works, but I will include a link in there in the description to kind of help you understand. You're welcome, Mike. And you can go and look at that link and see how the caucuses works. But if you're if you're following along with this election cycle, and then you look at things like the Iowa caucuses, these are kind of a foreshadowing, if you will, for the most part. So what the straw poll does is it gives us an idea for how the caucus might play out. Think of it as like an x-ray of sorts for the elections to come. The focus goes to like Iowa and New Hampshire in the very early stages of the election. So every 4 years, the presidential election cycle, it starts up with Iowa and then New Hampshire, and the media blows that up. It's kind of a big deal. And of course, it doesn't give, absolute determination to the president. It doesn't weed out, but what it does is it weeds out. What it does is it weeds out a lot of the lower tier candidates. Okay. So it paints that broad picture and saying, okay, who's the most likely to win? And this is essentially what they're doing at the state level. I don't know why the media blows it up so much. I can't understand for the life of me why they report on half of the things they do, but they do. And so with these caucuses, you kind of get a picture for which way the presidential election is going to swing. In fact, there's a lot of validity that goes into these things as far as like, say, okay, I'll give you an example here. One thing that I was reading about earlier is there's only one president in the last 40 years to fail to win both Iowa and New Hampshire, and that was Bill Clinton, and yet still got elected. Every other one of the presidents that's ever been elected over the last 40 years, they've won at least one and sometimes both of these states. So they're indicators in which way the election could go. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah. Okay. So one thing I would like to bring up, though, looking at this in your polls here that were provided by the article, is that the Democrats were not united under one. Now, if you did the math, the Democratic Party, the people that are running for the left, was at 37.6 if they were united under one candidate. Now, remind you that can differ between 5% going north or south, because a lot of them won't support if it wasn't their candidate. So that being said, this is going to be a crazy close race, I think, too.
So the straw poll, the way it turned out, Donald Trump won the majority, 34.5% of votes. He got 8,360 votes. So he was, and this is, now don't get excited about this saying, well, oh gosh, Trump won the straw poll. It doesn't matter that much, because you got to look at all of the other people who got voted for as well. Taking into consideration that these are all students and most of them don't really understand quite how the voting process works, a lot of them will just pick a name that they like. And that's not always the truth, but you'll hear a lot of names.
I bet you anything, majority of them pick Bernie Sanders for free education.
And that may be. But there's also the other side of it. You got to consider their political leanings kind of show a little bit of information into how the family probably discusses politics at the dinner table.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I didn't even think about that.
34.5% went to Donald Trump, and the rest of the voting process, or the rest of the straw poll, it went to Democrats. Bernie Sanders got 15.4%. Joe Biden got 7.7%. Andrew Yang got 7.4%. And I will also note that this article actually left Andrew Yang's numbers out. I had to go find him. So the media is actually suppressing Andrew Yang just like they are Tulsi Gabbard, which is unethical to the nth degree.
Oh, dude, that's garbage.
He doesn't fit the bill. He's not a woman. He's not a minority who suffers under kind of any kind of real oppression, because he's Asian, right? So the stereotype is that Asians can do math and Asians are well off in this country. And so we're still allowed to make fun of Asians, even though it's just as racist as making fun of, say, a black person. Oh, but since he's Asian, he's successful. Stereotypes galore. And so the media holds him down. And that's just my personal assessment. I don't have any facts to back that up. But then in fifth place was Pete Buttigieg. And yes, I call him Booty Judge because it's funny. Get over it. And he got 7.1% of the polls. So as it stands right now, if that's the way that these elections actually worked, Donald Trump would have won by a landslide. But The remaining candidates are all Democrats, and Iowa is kind of a flip-flopper when it comes to that kind of thing. They go both ways, much like some people's mothers. It's a purple state. So there's some validity to this whole straw poll thing. Yes and no. You can see, like I said, the political persuasion of certain people's families. And in the end, it's really just teaching kids how to vote. But the media takes it and runs with it for whatever reason.
No. The reason why I'm not talking, you're covering everything. You're practically reading my mind. It's crazy.
It's what I do. So I hope that it kind of explains the straw polls and the political caucuses that take place in Iowa and New Hampshire and why those are so important. If not, I've got the links in the article. You're welcome, Mike. So here's the big one. Former President Barack Obama calls out cancel culture. This made me smile because I said some nice things about him yesterday, and it's almost as if, again, he's like, they're doing some good stuff. Let me go say something nice. So, and this came from CNN of all places. CNN knocked my freaking socks off. Hey, you guys got one right. Broken clock. Boom. CNN, former President Barack Obama has largely stayed out of the spotlight since leaving the White House in 2017, choosing to avoid much direct criticism of his successor and not heavily engaging in the national dialogue more generally. But when Obama does take the time to offer his thoughts on the state or culture or politics, he's always worth listening to. CNN political perspective, not mine. Which brings me to what Obama said at an Obama Foundation event Tuesday about young people, social media, and the demand for absolute purity of belief in all things. Here's the key bit. Quote, this idea of purity, and you're never compromised, and you're always politically woke and all that stuff, you should get over that quickly. The world is messy. There are ambiguities. People who do really good stuff have flaws. People who you are fighting may love their kids and share certain things with you. Obama went on to note that he is bothered by a trend that he sees among young people, particularly in college campuses, where there's a sense that the way of me making change is to be as judgmental as possible about the other people, and that's enough, added Obama. That's not activism. That's not bringing about the change. If all you're doing is casting stones, you're probably not going to get that far. That's easy to do. It would be easy to see Obama's comments as a shot at President Donald Trump because, well, Trump's entire presidency is about sending tweets and casting stones, CNN says. And, of course, they have to publish they got to throw something in there about Trump because it wouldn't be CNN if they didn't mention Trump, right? So, continuing, the article says, but I think Obama is up to something much more complex and important here, the rise of cancel culture, particularly in the left and particularly on social media, is one of the defining hallmarks of our culture in the post-Obama presidency. Say something wrong, tweet something people disagree with, express an opinion that is surprising or contradicts the established view of people or what have you, and the demands for you to be fired, defriended, or otherwise driven from the realms of men quickly follow. The goal of many of these cancel culture acolytes appears to be simply to move from outrage to outrage, pointing fingers and yelling, here's the bad person right here, but left unsaid, but without question, the present in the underpinning of the worldview is that there are only good people, aka people who agree with me on all things, and bad people, those who don't agree with me on everything. There is no gray area. It's black or white. The point Obama is making is that politics and life are rarely that cut and dry. No one, including you, is all good or all bad. People who do really good stuff have flaws. This is especially true when it comes to the political realm in the 2020 campaign. At the moment, the fight within the Democratic Party is between the liberal, quote-unquote, no-compromise wing represented by Senators Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and the establishment pragmatic wing represented by Obama's former vice president, Joe Biden. And then at that point, the article starts to drone on about Biden and the election and blah, 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 things that we have talked about 100 times before, we don't need to go into. So the key point here is we need to acknowledge that the left's almighty Lord and Savior, Barack Obama, speaks, and the media jumps to back him up and agree with him at every opportunity. So CNN's basically over here fondling his goodies at any attempt that they possibly can, and whatever, it's CNN. But what's important here is that Barack Obama is calling out the left for their ridiculousness. He's standing up and saying, hey, this is enough. This cancel culture stuff, all these I'm woke and I'm offended and I'm hurt and my feelings and my emotions, it's got to stop. It's stupid. And we called this out, I don't know, what, last year maybe? I don't remember how long it's been. We called this out where the pendulum starts to swing the other way. And guess what? I think it just started and did a big fat U-turn, and now it's starting to swing towards sanity.
I think this is like his attempt to kind of unite the party right before primaries, and also to, to calm them down as, so they don't, get as much as the, what I would say, the negative press that they've been getting lately. So this is what he's doing. It is his way of trying to grease up the gears to get them rolling towards the primaries. And then so once the primaries are over and he continues to speak this kind of way, it starts, gaining traction and going faster and faster. And hopefully that will be enough to take over the Trump train. But, that's an uphill battle, and I hope he's prepared for it. And guess what? A lot of people on the left, or if they don't like what they hear, we all know what they do. And regardless if it's Obama or not, they'll find a way to silence him.
You make a valid point. I think, to me, one of the things that this really means is, with that pendulum starting to swing the other way, we've got to kind of look at where it's going at this point. So I think conservatives are gaining power back.
And he sees it.
Yeah, I think he does. And it's almost at that point where it's too little too late, because the far left.
Yeah, he should have been doing this even when he was leaving office.
Oh, yeah.
We saw this coming.
Oh, yeah. That should have been done years ago, but it wasn't. You know what I mean? In my opinion, one of the things that this is going to cause, I think that there's going to be a little bit of a suffering on Obama's part, and there's going to be some extremists that come out and start saying, oh, now Barack Obama is far right.
Yep.
And I don't think that that's the case, because it's such a rarity that I've agreed with Barack Obama. But this is one where I believe he's correct. The left has gone so far off the rails, and people are starting to call him out for it. Just like here, I'll give you another example. Recently, Tulsi Gabbard called out Hillary Clinton right there on Twitter. She called her the queen of warmongers, among some other things. And so, I mean, to me, there's more evidence there with the infighting in the party, but at the same time, there's some sanity that's actually coming back to the party through somebody like a Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah. And I think what's happening here is Obama's seen, I like to call it the fracture of the Democratic stone. They're a rock. They don't budge on a lot of policies, or at least their beliefs. Mm-hmm. And he sees the fracture of it in this stone. And if it continues to go this direction that it's going right now, it's going to break into half, and it will not be united again. And then from there, they see the conservatives now having not just this election, but many more after this, if they continue going down this route.
So do you think maybe that it's too late for 2020?
Oh, most definitely.
I mean, they've thrown every candidate out there at the DNC that they possibly could.
It might not seem like it to the left, because, again, they silence us. So it's to the point that you don't know Trump's going to win, because we're not talking about it. We're not flashing it about it. Unless Trump comes to our local towns, then yeah, we're there. Yes, we secretly send him money through, his online web campaign, the Trump campaign website. You can donate online, so that's the way we keep the hidden, because they're scared to go out, dude. They're scared to get beaten and clubbed.
Sure. You see it all the time in the media. I mean, mm-hmm. Well, I mean, even now more than ever, we've got this time where we're lucky to have independent journalists who are going out there, and they're going to some of these pride rallies and things like that. And they're just trying, like one guy I've seen a lot on YouTube lately, his name's or his channel's called Flaccid Talks. And he just goes out there and talks to people calmly, rationally. And he says, well, my opinion is Trump's not that bad. And people lose their minds.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this whole situation, like there's a lot of infighting within their own party. And I mean, we all seen it coming, because how extreme can you really go?
There is extreme. And it's funny. They brushed that line of terrorism.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of terrorism. I mean, let's not forget that Barack Obama sent a pallet full of cash over to Iran right before he left office.
No, but I'm saying domestic terrorism. You're saying how extreme would they go, and other similar groups like that.
Yeah.
And you're asking how far they've gone. That far, they brushed that line to the point it's becoming illegal, and to the point it's not standing for what the Constitution was meant for.
I agree. You're right. And the party's coming back to a little bit of sanity. And I'm relieved to a degree, but it's also one of those things, like, I'll believe it when I see it. And there's a lot of evidence to suggest that it's coming back. Like with the Tulsi Gabbard thing, Vox actually defended Tulsi Gabbard. Link in I'll link in the description below, Mike. You're welcome. And now they didn't come right out and say that Clinton was wrong or anything like that either. I mean, they certainly didn't rush to defend her and Gabbard at the same time. It was, it was a Vox article, so take that for what it's worth. But the thing that blows my mind is Tulsi Gabbard is not afraid of the Clinton death machine. Like, she's like, no, I'm going to call this warmongering witch out. Yes, I said witch, not the other one. But the big picture here is the culture. It's shifting back, and it's coming quickly, and because people they're sick of the left and their 37 flavors of gender.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll welcome back any rational thought.
That I got nothing.
You're Americans
crazy.
You're Americans first.
Yeah.
Act like it.
Yeah. You're right, dude. It just, man, it just blows my mind. And what blows my mind even more is that Obama, I'm not saying what he did was wrong, but I think it's a little too late, and he has the nerve to stand up there and say what he just said, because guess what? He was on that side, if you remember, Jeremy, during the election. You remember? He wasn't politically correct when he was calling out Trump, when Trump was running, when he was still in office, when he was our president. He was name bashing. He was gathering the troops. So it basically, he's going after his own creation.
Dr. Frankenstein.
Yep.
Do you think that there's a possibility that he's recognized his mistakes and now he's owning it?
A little too late there, guy.
Yeah,
here's a cup of coffee.
Too little too late, perhaps. But credit where credit is due. At least he said something about it. I have to give credit where credit's due. When you do something right, regardless of how much.
It reminds me of this is history repeating itself here. This reminds me of the time when they voted the Federal Reserve into power. Everyone regretted their actions and started making statements and all this. And I'm like, it's a little too late. We have the Federal Reserve here calling the shots. So,
yeah, precedents. It's really difficult to undo things once you've done them.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, well, anyways, we've got to move on to our main topic today. So take it away, Jacob.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about this because you hit a real chord to me the other day when we were talking about what's her name, the one that was complaining about work in college.
Oh yeah, the young
the one that
lady.
the name that doesn't matter.
Yeah, her name doesn't matter. We didn't even cite her name. It was CNBC.
No, so I wanted to talk about success, because one thing that, the article never talked about is everything that she was complaining about. Was she successful in any of this? She was just complaining. You know what I'm saying? So I wanted to cover a couple of key points in this, and which is like, if you want to become successful as being a college student and also working at the same time, the first step you have to make is to do an honest appraisal of what you can do to reach your goals. That honest appraisal is if you want to be a college graduate without pulling any loans, what's the honest appraisal going to tell you? I'm going to have to find a job, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these are the things that she never talked about, you know. I don't think she was really being honest with herself. I think she just went to college not knowing or doing an honest appraisal on how it needed to get done to get this goal, which I'm not saying it was a bad goal. Getting a college degree is a good goal. I know college is not for everybody.
Some degrees are good goals.
Yes, exactly. So
the lesbian dance theory degree is not a good goal.
And this starts by taking a hard look at your behavior and telling the truth about what is and what is not working in your life. Telling the truth is the critical first step. Being honest to yourself. This is a practical, down-to-earth approach to use whenever you want to change your behavior, right? Instead of being a whiny baby about it and taking what I considered a shortcut in your journalism career is to be like, you know what? Let me hunker down. Let me spend less money on entertainment. Let me do, spend more hours on working. Let me bring my textbooks to work. So instead of having an hour lunch of eating, I'm going to take 10 minutes to eat a quick snack and read what I need to do for the next day at school,
Yeah.
So when we acknowledge our strengths, we gain an accurate picture of what we can accomplish. When we acknowledge our weaknesses, we can work on the strategies to overcome those weaknesses. So I'm pretty much going to go over this whole article that she was complaining about. Her weaknesses were what? She was tired. Give me a break. We're all tired.
That's part of being an adult.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody that's not tired.
I'm retired. And I'm under the weather. My wife's under the weather. And guess what? My wife, she doesn't go to class every day. She's to the point she's writing her dissertation for her PhD. But guess what? We're still tired because we have a 2-year-old. But we don't look at our son and write eye to eye. You know, Elon, you're going to have to take yourself to school today, buddy. Mom and dad are tired. No, we suck it up. I'm not going to write a news article about it and bashing either my school or my son and basically playing the blame game.
Well, you're talking about a set of circumstances that you've not only allowed yourself to be in, but you've chosen to pursue. So with the kid, one of the greatest rewards of being a parent is seeing all of those milestones that your kid can cross. And this is not really far removed from childhood. This woman who we're talking about right now, she's crossing milestones and she's not celebrating them. That's part of her problem is she doesn't know that she's achieving goals. She just thinks that she's grinding.
Mm-hmm. And then also, if you're being honest about your strengths, your weaknesses, you can help, yourself and ourselves in improvements in every aspect of our life. Failing to make an honest self-assessment, that I'm going to say that again, doing an honest self-assessment on yourself can prevent us and yourself from reaching your goals. To succeed in school, tell the truth about what kind of student you are today and what kind of student you want to work and towards the becoming for tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. That's beautifully said, because your goals, you don't have those ambitions, those goals, those things that are set aside. Look, what's a big goal that you have right now? You personally, Jacob, what's your big goal right now?
Well, a lot of listeners don't know this, but I've really been getting heavily into, screen writing scripts and screenplays. And my biggest goal is to be recognized as a screenwriter.
Okay.
That is it, by the industry, not by just anyone,
okay,
but just by the industry.
So that's a big, giant goal, right? That's huge. It would be amazing to see your name on the silver screen. So,
or not even that, just winning a screenwriting competition,
or even
by like Canvas Films or Canis Films or whatever.
Okay, and that's well respectable. There's nothing wrong with that. But the picture here I try to draw is there's a parallel here. So there's certain hoops that you have to jump through to achieve that goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so one of your very first steps towards achieving that goal is you had to get the education. So you're taking the steps to educate yourself on what it takes to become a successful screenwriter, right? So with every class that you've ever taken, with every idea that you've ever discovered, with every piece of equipment that you've ever purchased, what have you, Those are all minor goals that you've set in place in order to achieve your greater goal, right? Do you feel a sense of success whenever you accomplish each one of those things?
Oh yeah, of course.
See, that's the difference between you and this young lady.
Yeah. And now, so I'm going to go back into like the one thing I think that if she should have done before even writing this article, and one of them is like, okay, I want to use this as an example. When you visit a doctor, what is the first step into becoming better if you had an illness? Everybody knows, and a lot of people don't do, is tell the truth about your current symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
You know, us being infantry guys, sometimes, you know, when our knee hurts, we're not like, and we're going in there because our, you know, we have a cough, you know, we need to start being honest, like, well, you know what else is bothering me? My knee's been aching. But us being, you know, prior military, sometimes I'm like, I'll get over it kind of attitude and just talk about my current symptoms of just the cough, what brought me in.
Yeah. Because the diagnosis of a pain in the knee in the military often just leads to a little bit of Motrin and a little bit of water, right?
Yeah. So if you're being honest with the doctor, that will give you a more accurate diagnosis and an effective treatment plan. And this principle, I like to call it universal. It works just for any problem in any area of life. People dealing with a variety of new pursuits or obstacles start by analyzing the situation and telling the truth, just being honest about it. So saying like a venture of buying a car too, that, you know, or purchasing a home, and you know, everything forth, you know, you got to be honest about yourself. You know, everyone's excited about, you know, once you get married, have the kids, buy the home, they want to go to the next step of buying the home first or before having the kid, and they want to just jump right into it. Like, what do we need to do? What paperwork? And they don't know, like, okay, well, maybe we need to start taking a few steps back and figure out how to get to that. They think automatically that you have a 650 credit score that automatically approves you on getting a home. You get what I'm saying?
It's the comparison trap.
Yeah.
You fall into your 19, 20, 21. I'm an adult now, just like my mommy and daddy. So I have to go buy the 2,000 square foot house and the big stereo system like my father has. I'm going to need a loan.
Yep. So what happens with the doctor when he gives you treatment? He gives you the treatment, which is your medication, or, you know, say if your knee's hurting, it's physical therapy. That being said, with your treatment, your doctor sets up goals for you, which is your appointments to go to get better. And so that's the next step, is setting goals. And we talked about this numerous times on this podcast, students achieving success by turning their shortcomings into goals. We've always talked about that, and not just about students, but into individuals themselves. But you cannot avoid this phase of anything in life. I am telling you right now, Jeremy knows this because he lives and dies by it on that whiteboard of his in the back, is writing down your goals and meeting them, constantly beating yourself mentally and reminding you, holy crap, I got to put $100 away today, or I got to do 10 push-ups today. You know, 10 push-ups might be a lot, but if you're working towards that 100, you got to start somewhere, right? Especially if you haven't worked out in years.
Yeah. 10 push-ups goes a long way when you haven't done one.
Mm-hmm. So when you're on your way to, you know, setting your goals, another thing I would like to talk about, and I've done this already when we talked about Managing Oneself by Peter F. Drucker, is recognizing your strengths. For some of us, it's even harder to recognize our strengths than to recognize our weaknesses, maybe because we don't like to brag, or we're the quiet ones. The reasons don't matter. The point is using this step or this technique, and telling the truth about our positive qualities too as well. So talking about when you do this self-assessment, you know, talk about your strengths too, not just jot your weaknesses. Keep in mind that strengths take an extreme takes more of extreme way of thinking, because the first thing, honestly, every time when we try to set up self-assessments is what, Jeremy, our weaknesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we never really focus on our strengths. So to successfully reach a goal, you want to use those strengths to reach those goals faster. So maybe you're not very powerful at doing core exercises. Well, you like hiking like me. I like hiking, but I don't like exercising. But guess what? When you hike with a pack on your back, especially one that's well fitted, it works out your core. So using your strengths to overcome some of those, to reach those goals, you can get there a little bit faster. Understand where I'm getting at, Jeremy?
You're compensating to a degree by utilizing a strength rather than a weakness to address the weakness.
Yep.
I can't run to save my life. I've never been a strong runner, but I can ride a bike and I can still get the cardio. So I can still build my cardio up. I just have to find a something, A, that I enjoy, and B, that will actually serve the similar purpose, but not the exact same purpose.
And this is all going a fine line of just being honest and being truthful. Truth is power, right? So along with that, when you're telling the truth about yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, setting goals, just being universal altogether, one of the key things is being specific about it. You know, the way we express our truth is more powerful when it's more specific. You know, being like, well, I'm not good at push-ups because I want to really be honest and be specific. It's because I'm lazy, or it's very hard for me to get up or get down. If you're more heavy set or whatever, I'm just speaking in examples. You know, you have to be specific, because if you're not, then you're really not going to narrow down your strengths, and you're really not going to narrow down your weaknesses as well. So you know how to reach your goals. So being just as specific about what you're planning to achieve, you might declare, oh, I want to create a plan on Monday to divide my weekly readings into manageable segments if you're a college student. So instead of reading a full chapter in one day, I want to read a paragraph throughout the week, you know, or whatever your goals are to get through a book, you know, as a student. You know, I know some people, you know, I know college classes have you read a few chapters in a week. So breaking that down, you know, will be a lot easier to achieving and reaching your goals. So like for me as a screenwriter, you know, or wanting to be a screenwriter, or at least a professional one, my first goal was, well, I don't know anything about the industry. So let me, you know, I have GI Bill left. Well, let me go to school real quick and learn about it more, and actually pick a school that's in the industry and just not any university. So that's what I did, and kind of set myself up more to be successful, and then reaching this goal of mine of being a recognized screenwriter. Now, that being said, one thing I've noticed in this whole article that she was writing is that I feel like I didn't hear a whole lot of motivation. You know, maybe if she was going towards a degree of a subject that she was passionate about and working a job towards that kind of career field, there wouldn't be that much complaining, right?
Yeah, you're spot on. There was almost zero motivation. Or now she'll tell you in the article that she's a very goal-oriented and motivated person, but then the article continues to her just complaining about circumstances. That's
so so we hear this in the military, and I still utilize it today, and you actually hear it in classes. You know, I remember taking a behavioral science class a while back, and they talked about this, and but I remember motivation was the key, and finding your way to be motivated, you know, finding, you know, something to continuously pushing yourself through. Now, one of the first steps towards achieving success and understanding motivation, the journey towards our dream isn't always easy. And you know, be honest, in real life, most of the time it's not. You'll be challenged to learn new things, sacrificing your free time, and to step outside of your comfort zone. You know, identifying the best ways to remain motivated will be helpful for you as a professional, as a student, or just as any, you know, even being retired. You still got to be motivated about life, and being motivated like, well, this is not the end. So finding those motivational keys are the best things, you know, and that's why you find one of these most successful people in the world. And in a lot of this podcast, we like pointing out billionaires, because at least self-made billionaires, like Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Steve Jobs at the time, is because they were passionate about what they're doing and they were motivated in doing it. So kind of when you're going to school, if you're not really happy about being a major in business, or you're not really happy about history or whatever subject that you decided to pick, um, and you're not motivated and you're really not happy when you're up there at 9 o'clock in the morning in your class, really sit down and think about what I just said about being analyzed, doing a self-assessment. You know what? I'm not really happy about this class. What do I need to do? But remember, if you're picking a major or you're picking kind of like a topic for starting your business, that is not going to be easy. You might be passionate about it, but there's other things involved in running a business. There's other classes instead of just taking history. If you're a history nut, you still got to take math. You still got to take science. So finding, if those are your weaknesses, guess what? Find ways to motivate yourself to get through them.
Yeah, knock out some prereqs until you do figure it out. I mean, that's real easy to do, and you don't even have to take on any excess loans or any excess, spend any more money. Just knock a prereq out while you do the research on what's next.
Yeah, I like to bring this up. Like my buddy Eddie, he's in Vietnam right now. He's helping out, the unfortunate, and I love bringing him up because one thing he enlightened me on when I was visiting him when he was living in Hawaii was, I asked him, well, why are you working? You don't need to work. You're retired. He's like, dude, I've always wanted to learn how to make pizza. So that's why I'm working at a pizza joint.
That's a paid internship right there.
Exactly. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because you should find a job that kind of is in your field. And I don't want to hear it. Well, I applied and they didn't say yes. Don't give up.
Yeah, I put an application in once.
Yeah, go in there. I am telling you, there's times that I don't get called back, or when I decided to go for a job, I will walk in there. And that's how I met Daryl. I walked into his office, and be like, dude, I don't want nothing in return. I don't even want a paycheck right now. I want to learn and how you got everything going. And now if money is an issue, then yes, you are going to have to work that job to accomplish those goals. But doesn't mean that if you're a pizza delivery person, or if you're working a job that you don't like, it doesn't have to be forever. You're not stuck there until you graduate. Continuously search for that dream job. And one day when they figure out and notice that gem in you, then yes, I know that it's a lot harder than what I'm making it sound like. Yes, you have to put a cover letter, a resume. You got to learn how to represent yourself. All that stuff you can figure out through YouTube. I don't have to sit here on this podcast and tell you and show you how to be a professional adult. You should know that, or go through YouTube and learn it,
Yeah, if there's something that you truly, really want to achieve, you'll find a way to do it, or you'll just fall right back into the rat race like everybody else and never change the world.
Mm-hmm. And now I want to end this podcast and a lot of things. And this is if you heard that podcast before on the article that we're talking about, this girl who was struggling as a college student and a worker at the same time, I want to split these two things apart. What's the difference between a successful student and a struggling student? Successful student, number one, accepts personal responsibility, seeing themselves as a primary cause of their outcomes and experiences. But on the other end, a struggling student sees themselves as the victim, believing that what happens to them determined primarily by an external force such as fate, luck, and the actions of others. All right. Successful student discovers self-motivation, finding purpose in their lives by pursuing personal, meaningful goals and dreams. On the other hand, struggling students have difficult sustaining motivation, often feeling frustration, resentful about the lack of direction in their lives, and so on and so forth. Successful students master self-management. That's another thing that I'm grateful that we've learned in the military, Jeremy. Now, consistently planning and taking purposeful action in pursuit of their goals and dreams. As in, the struggling students suddenly identify specific actions needed to accomplish a goal. And when they do, they tend to procrastinate. Procrastination, guys, it's pretty much what ends most college students.
Yep. Successful students don't write for CNBC either.
Yeah. Successful students, guess what? They employ independency. There you go. Building supportive building blocks, and and learning how to become independent. And as a struggling students are solitary, seldom asking for help or doing the blame game, or even rejecting offers to assistance from those who could help. Kind of like, oh, I got it, man, kind of attitude. you know uh Successful students adopt a lifelong learning, finding valuable lessons and wisdoms in every and any experience. From books, we talked about this, Jeremy, in mentorship.
Yep. You lit a fire under my butt on this whole thing, because I was all about learning things, but I wasn't really crazy about reading when we first started this podcast adventure. But that has changed hugely.
Yeah. And here's the one thing I've noticed, and I've noticed this in my inner circle, not you, Jeremy, which I'm going to start, filtering through my friends, is resist learning new ideas and skills. That's what struggling students do. View learning as boring or frightening, or rather mental pain, or this what I'm doing right now works kind of attitude.
Yep. That's a denial of any opportunistic endeavors that pop up. Mm-hmm. When I hear opportunity knocking, I'm like, all right, let's walk through this door and see what happens.
As successful students gain self-awareness, consciously adopting behaviors, beliefs, and attitudes that can keep them on course. As struggling students, guess what? Make important choices unconsciously, being influenced by bad habits or outdated life patterns, or, it kind of reminds me of that repulsive buyer, kind of just buying without doing research.
Yeah, just the impulse purchase, and then struggling through buyer's remorse. You know who's probably dealing with a lot of buyer's remorse right now?
What's that?
People who bought the iPhone 11. Sorry.
All right. Successful students develop emotional intelligence, effectively managing their emotions in support of their goals and dreams. Kind of reminds me of that lady didn't have emotional intelligence.
TSA lady.
Yep. Struggling students, though, live at the mercy of the strong emotions such as anger, sadness, anxiety, or the need of instant gratification. What's this article sounding more towards, like the struggling student, right?
Yep.
I got one more on both sides. Successful students believe in themselves, seeing themselves as capable, worthy, and valuable. See the value in yourself, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you, it's there. If you don't see it, then I'm sorry. You see counseling, or see motivational videos, or meditate. See your own worthiness. You bring value to the world. I promise you, you do. You have something, or you're great at something that I'm probably horrible at, and I would love to learn from. All right. Struggling students doubt their competence. They doubt their personal value, feeling inadequate to create their desired goals and experiences. So, what does this girl sound like?
To me, she kind of sounds like somebody who doesn't understand that not only does she have an IQ, but she also has an EQ, and her EQ is clearly in the toilet. EQ is the emotional quotient. It's a parallel to the intelligence quotient, but you have to, in this world, you have to maintain a certain level of sanity over both. Sure, you have to be intelligent. There has to be a certain level of intelligence. But the richest people in the world, the most successful people in the world, they're not the smartest people in the world. They're the people who have their emotions in check, and they go out and they hire the smartest people in the world. That's why the smartest people in the world, the straight A students, or those who are the science majors, the real smart guys, those super intelligent dudes, they're not the ones that change the world. Sorry, they're not.
Yeah. So I'm going to leave you with these last 10 tips real quick. I'm not going to get into them. We'll go over it at another time, but these are just 10 quick tips in increasing your motivation and be more successful in life. Number 1, create interest in the task that you're doing. Break down the task. Monitor your progress. Set challenging but realistic goals. Again, realistic goals. Set learning goals. Monitor your learning and your progress. Learn from your mistakes. See the value in the task that you're doing. Use positive self-talk. That's a lot of things a lot of people don't use at all. I think I told my wife this morning, like, talk in the mirror. if you're feeling confident about a certain idea that she's going to be representing towards the crowd or presenting towards the crowd. Sorry. And also, last but not least, have a positive attitude. You know, if you start, you know, feeling down, again, go back to one of the steps, one of the tips I just gave you. Self-talk to yourself. Look in the mirror like, all right, Jacob, it's just a small bump in the road, but we'll get through it, buddy. You know, kind of a night like that. Or you know, call me or call Jeremy if we're personal friends, or reach out to us on Retired. I promise you, we will reply
eventually. No, you.
But that's all I got. It kind of, when you read that article, and I'm sorry for not getting back with you right away on, but
dude,
on this.
No
but
apology
man,
necessary.
that whole article with that girl, was kind of, it went underneath my skin because I'm like, what?
Yeah, this girl did not scream success at all. Granted, she published something in CNBC, and that's amazing. Really, it is, even though we bash on CNBC a lot. But, you know, you said something that really kind of, it kind of registered with me there for a second, because you were talking about, basically you're talking about confidence, especially towards the end when you mentioned, you know, talk to yourself in the mirror or read into the mirror or whatever. A couple of years ago, I had to give a eulogy, and it was a little difficult because I was not strong with public speaking. I didn't want to do any public speaking, but it was a friend of mine who passed away, and how could I say no? Obviously, you know, the family's interested in me doing the speaking. Of course, I'm going to say yes. Of course, I'm going to do it. So I put the speech together. It's ironic now I'm saying, yeah, I wasn't a big fan of public speaking, and yet here we are, episode 42. Oh my God. Well, anyway, when I put the speech together, I said, okay, this is a funeral. This is his last hurrah. I'm going to make sure that this goes off without a hitch. I stood in front of the mirror and I gave the speech, and I fixed things that I didn't like, and I gave it again, and then I fixed things I didn't like again, and I gave it again, until I felt like that speech was consistent with the way that I wanted to come across with the rest of the family, because this is somebody that was important to them, and it wasn't about me. But something changed, and it was inadvertent. It wasn't something I intended to do, but it built my confidence up so much now to a whole new level, that here we are doing a podcast, because why not? Because we can. We stepped out of that comfort zone. We did a little bit of research. We started it off, and I'm sure that I sounded like crap when we started in the beginning. We had no equipment. I couldn't even hear myself back. I remember all this. We had these conversations. We had that whole conversation where, you know, what do we got to do to grow? What do we got to do to get better? Where do we start? Okay, that was okay. That was good. That was bad. Let's do some feedback. We played off of each other. We threw it at each other. And when something didn't work and something didn't stick, then one of us would either fix it or call the other person out on it. Because that's all it was in the end, is we're trying to be professional. We're trying to grow. And by God, if we start coming up with excuse after excuse, like, oh, well, you know, I don't feel like recording today because I sound like the Marlboro Man. So what? It gives people an idea that, hey, Jacob's a real person.
Yep, I got sick, guys.
Damn it. How dare you? You know what? In the future, we can avoid you getting sick. And all you got to do is some freaking push-ups.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll end it on that. Talk to you later.
Have a good one.